Welcome. Thanks for joining me. It's Tuesday evening where I am. Want to talk about browsers, and more browsers. Oh my! You're going to spend most of your time in our curriculum, or a great majority of it, using a browser. So, what are some things you can do to make it more effective and a more pleasant experience for you? This is part of my Smarter Not Harder working series. Um, Browsers, there are a lot of different browsers out there. Um, the vast majority of people either use Chrome or Firefox. Um, there is some debate. Wikipedia places Safari second, which is primarily an Apple browser, whereas StatCounter actually counts Firefox as second. Um, it doesn't really matter. What you will find is that, particularly the last couple of years for our curriculum, there are some differences. Um, that some things will and will not open with certain browsers. Hopefully, we're moving towards all of our curriculum will be on HTML5, and we will move away from Java and from Flash. Thank goodness. Um, One of the issues is that all browsers, no matter whose it was, up until recently, had to depend on something called the Netscape Application Program Interface, the Netscape API, and it was the gateway to a lot of exploits. It opened the door for a lot of things. They have been phasing it out. On a voluntary, and they're actually discontinuing support in most of the major browsers. But again, I don't care which one you use. We'll talk about both of them. Um, this tab, everybody's been there. You know, my mind's like an internet browser. I've got 19 tabs open, 3 of them are frozen. I have no idea where the music is coming from. We're trying not to be that guy. We're trying to be on task and moving along. Um, the Look at Chrome first. I'm actually going to turn that back off. I actually had been through this once, and I came back and I decided I want to do it again. Um, the First thing I recommend doing for all the browsers is turning on, and I'll just turn it off, is turning on what's called the bookmark bar. And what that does is that gives you a quick access to your sites that you use on a regular basis. I don't need 2 of those. For example, the Francis Tuttle Canvas and the Cisco Netacad. Just click one button. I don't have to worry about mistyping something, remembering it. The wonderful thing about this is that it actually goes in, and if you go to settings and sign in, it will sync between your home and your work or your classroom, wherever you want to be. So it's a real easy way to not have to think so hard, and also it's a lot quicker. Some of the things that I also suggest doing, excuse me, I've got some of these tabs up. I've actually been through this, and I decided I didn't like the first one, so I'm doing it over again. So I'm having to kind of back up and turn some stuff off. Is extensions. One of the things that most people do mistakenly is they add way too many plugins and extensions. And it slows the browser down, it corrupts the browser, it causes freezes, it causes the browser to crash, it causes things to not work. I limit the number of plugins. If I need something beyond the basics, what I will do is I will go in and turn it off. Like I turned off this Acrobat, it's turned off. If I don't need it, I'm going to turn it off. Okay. That way, it lessens the impact it has on the browser. There's less chances of crashing. Some of the other things I suggest doing in the settings portion, besides syncing, is come in. I usually have when I do a new tab, have it just come up with a new page. I turn on the bookmarks bar. I showed you that. I typically use Google. Their Dogpile's not bad. There's some other ones out there that are pretty good. On startup, when you first start the browser, what they will try to do is they want you to land on their portal, whether it's Yahoo or Bing or the Google page, whoever it is, because they generate revenue off those hits. However, I want to start off where I left off, so that's what I put down. Okay. Under advanced, there's a lot of things that you can do. I typically, if I go to advanced, I'm turning stuff off rather than turning it on. Most of these are okay. I send a do not track request. They may or may not honor that. On content settings, you may or may not have to set some of these things, for example, JavaScript and Flash, depending on what curriculum you're going through. On manage passwords, I do not manage my passwords through the browsers. I turn that off. I clear those all out. The main reason is for example, Nearsoft has some very small, easy utility programs that will grab passwords from Internet Explorer, Outlook, MSN Messenger. I download one file. I can walk in, I can grab all of your IE, web browser, pass view, following web browser, Internet Explorer 1 through 8, Firefox, all versions, Chrome, and Opera. I can grab all of them. Not a good idea to put your passwords in the browser. Okay, that's up to you, but that's just my suggestion. Downloads, I don't know if I talked about that. Jimmy left off. Okay, manage passwords. Downloads. Typically, it will default to users, your account, and then downloads. I usually change this. As you can see, this is off the root of C. I have a folder called Students, and then a folder with my name, and I put it there. Then I also say, ask me where to save each file before downloading. This allows me to place files where I want to. In that folder, my GP folder, I may have a folder for IT Essentials. I may have one for CCNA 1 and CCNA 2. That allows me to place those files in some place where I can retrieve them in an organized manner. That's about it. There's a lot more you can do with the browser. Some of it is just overkill. Some of the nice features I didn't show you about. Some of the one things I like, and I do run this IP address, is if I go to Cisco, it will give me information about the location for the Cisco Netacad. This is its IP address. It gives me the location, the ASN number, which when you get into the routing, you'll get host information. There's a lot of information here. IPv6 information, ISP, the domain. I can even get my IP address. Okay, that's my IP address in Oklahoma City. So that's a kind of a fun tool. One of the things I like about that is I can determine whether a site is who they say they are. There's some other tools that go along with that. LastPass is a great tool. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail. These are just some of the sites that I have that it will fill in the blank for me. If you go to Firefox, it's very similar. The difference is you turn on the bookmark bar by click this plus sign up here, right click, turn it on and off. I also like the menu bar. It's kind of old school, but again, I've got some add-ons. A lot of them are very similar. AdBlock, Adobe. I actually need to disable that. Cisco Web Extension, I'm going to disable that. I use that for conferencing. Disconnect is kind of interesting. I can't remember. I don't think I covered that. If I go to a highly trafficked site like CNN, you'll notice a little green deal is, oh, I'm using an ad blocker. Oh well. This actually shows me what other third parties are getting information from this site. There's 7 advertisers. There's 4, or at least 2 analytical sites. There are 14 content requests. If you wonder why it takes so long for some of these sites to load, that's because it's pulling all this stuff in. This is also on the advertising is where a lot of your some of your banner advertising, actually they don't know who the actual advertisers are. That's how malware comes in. So that's just another little thing. Here's my ad block. It's already blocked 8 ads on this page. Like I said, I do like some of the plugins. I also am very careful. There was one, web security was very big with a lot of people, and it was actually supposed to help your security. And it turns out that they were actually selling your information. I'm going to go into options, like I did with Chrome. I'm going to open links and tabs. That just works for me. I like spell check. On downloads, I'm always asking where to save files so I can kind of sort them out as they go. One of the things that you may find helpful and Chrome had it, I didn't talk about it, on applications. Just like Windows, you can associate file types, that dot and the 3 characters at the end, with an application. This way, it knows anytime I try to open a PDF file, instead of opening it in a browser, it's going to open it with Adobe. Great feature, save you a lot of time. Okay. Usually I have updates going, but I let them check for updates, but I get to choose to install them. Proxy, I typically turn off to no proxy. It's a pet peeve of mine. Again, in security, I don't save logins and passwords. I don't want to save my addresses. I don't want somebody to be able to pull those out of my browser. You may want to never remember history. It makes some things, and same thing with cookies. You can get very restrictive on these, but it will make it a lot harder, less convenient. I always turn on tracking protection. Okay. Now let's get down to the actual using the thing. This is, of course, I'm actually have gone into a course that I'm taking as a student rather than one that I am teaching, because it gives you you actually see it as a student. I'm going to go into courses, and let's look at the course index. One of the things, I can't remember what. Let's look for an activity. One of the things that you can do to see whether or not how well your browser is working with that particular class is find. There's usually some drag and drops in here, and that's kind of the iron test. Wireshark, Nmap. Actually, let's go down. Well, I don't see it in there. That's okay. Basically, if drag and drop works, then most everything works. One of the things you will find is that if you start running some of the hands-on skills-based assessments using Packet Tracer. If you are using Chrome, it will actually download a JNLP file. It's a Java WebStart loader file, whereas in Firefox it'll prompt you to ask. You'll have to go down. Of course, it downloads. It'll show up down here. Then you have to right-click it and go to Show in Folder and double-click it. The other thing I typically suggest is I always, instead of just directly double-clicking on an item like this, I right-click, and I say right-click with a reservation. I'm left-handed, so it's left-click. Basically, I'll use right-click for convenience, so we'll both know what we're talking about. But if you're left-handed, it's left-click, and you can either open this with a new tab or a new window. One of the nice things about that is that I can move this. If you've got double screens, I can move this around. I can just shut this down and I'm right back where I started from. Okay. Same thing appears here. I can do this. I've got my video.
Today's lab is our walls and ideas walls.
I can close that down. I'm right back where I started from. One of the things you'll find by default, these courses are the modules, which is what these sections are called, are uncompressed. They're expanded, if you will. And as you can see, if I'm a few weeks into the course and I'm trying to go to chapter 7, it's a scroll of death, okay? And so what I really recommend doing is coming in and compressing all these and only keeping open the one that you're actually working on, okay? One of the other things on the terms and concepts, flashcards, very helpful. If you haven't tried it, if you have trouble reading some of this stuff, you can always use the control and the plus key to enlarge the screen, or then to shrink it down, control and minus, bring it back down. Sometimes it's tricky finding normal, but so that's something that helps. Remember, you have the calendar in the course. I get it to come up. Actually, I'm going to open a new tab. And when you first come up, basically you're going to see every calendar for every course that you're enrolled in. Because of the nature of our program, we do open entry, open exit. There is no due dates in these individual courses. So what I suggest doing is going in and turning off all the ones other than the where is it? It's not showing. Intro. Actually, let me go over. Oh, that's because we're in the Cisco class. You can have a personal calendar. Double click, and then to change the date here to the 28th. Submit, and it'll show up on the 28th. I really suggest for my students, rather than using the Netacad, that you come back to Canvas from Francis Tuttle. And go to calendars. And again, you're going to see all the classes, and they'll be turned on like so. Normally I turn all the ones off other than the cybersecurity program and my name. Notice that these are color coded, the green, and I can go in, I can change this. So if I want to change mine, I can click the 3 dots and I can change it to red. Okay, now mine is red too, but that's a little too close to that. So I'm going to go back and change it back to green. I can add an event for example, today is the here I've added the dentist. I've got a dentist appointment, and I can actually move that from calendar to calendar since I'm instructor. You only can create stuff in your own personal account. But what's kind of nice is that I can turn this off and just show my staff stuff. I mean, my not staff, my Francis Tuttle things up. I can turn my calendar on and off, and then I can superimpose them together. Of course, I talked about in the other feed, you can actually click on this calendar feed, and you can actually take this code, paste it in your calendar of choice that takes iCalc, and it will show up there. So that's kind of another nice little feature. Trying to think of anything else I'm missing. I think that's it. There are 100 million things you can do with the browser to make it faster, better. Some of them are counterproductive. I like to keep it simple. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to browsers, and browsers. Oh my. I hope you learned something out of this. I hope some of this will make your work a little easier to get through. And with that, I'm going to call it a night, and I hope you have a good